down there? I didn't see you down there. Hi! Nice to see you. What a wild weather today, isn't it? Yeah. Let me tell you something about weather. About climate, to be specific. New Zealand has a lot of different climates. Like up in the North Island, it's like almost tropically warm. And down south, it's temperate, cold weather. However, New Zealand is still an island, and that means oceanic weather. Oceanic weather is dominated by the ocean. The ocean in summer, it acts like this kettle here. It takes all of the energy of this air to heat up the water. Now by winter, all the water has got nice and warm, like in a hot water bottle. And now it releases this warmth slowly, so it's not too cold when we set in for winter. You can see the differences if you look at the weather graphs. For Munich and for Greymouth. If you look at Munich, the temperatures from winter to summer range between 20 degrees, whereas Greymouth only has a difference between 10. So, all this oceanic climate means the plants are evergreen. Like there's barely anything that's grey in winter. It's super nice. Look at that. It's pretty. Now the downside is that insects don't die off in winter. And now you're like, why is it a downside? Because sandflies exist. And they're fucking annoying. There are regional differences in the climate in New Zealand. A famous example is the West Coast. We get a lot of rain here, up to 10,000 millimeters a year! No, the reason the West Coast is so wet comes from this ocean behind me! And the mountains over there! Because as the wind just goes or sweeps over the oceans, it picks up a lot of moisture! It goes and picks up the water. Now, carrying this water, it hits the mountains. Now, to get over there, it has to rise. So the warm air rises, cools, and condenses. Now the problem is, cold air can't carry as much water as warm air does. I'm sure you've heard them say it. What comes up must come down. That's what I say. So the now cold air can't carry any of this water anymore. So it just drops it. Rain! Rain on the West Coast! All the water on the West Coast means we get a lot of rivers. And you know what that means? Kayaking. All the water on the West Coast, together with the mild oceanic climate, means that plants are adapted to be wet. Like this fern, for example, or that one. The opposite to the West Coast is the East Coast. Here, it's actually nice. They get warm, sunny and dry weather, and if they're lucky, a fern. The fern is a very funny phenomenon. Now, do you remember when I told you earlier that all the wind on the West Coast has to rise above the mountains and the water falls down and it rains on the West Coast? Well, now all the wind, all that air is on top of the mountains and it doesn't have any of the water anymore. And on the other side it falls down and it goes down, it warms up again. It's not that high up, it's warmer. But there's a catch. It does not have to warm up all the water anymore, because all the water is on the West Coast and not there. That means it warms up faster than it would have otherwise. That means we get warm, dry air, just like a hairdryer. Now, if you think that is a good analogy, that's what meteorologists thought so too. That's why it's called Föhn. That's a German word for hairdryer. The more you know. The warmth and the sun make it so the plants on the East Coast grow really fast and really well. Well, the farmers thought that was handy. So they went and burned it down to make their farms. North of the east coast is the top of the south. Golden Bay, Nelson Bay, that sort of thing. Tasman. It's pretty beautiful. We have lots and lots of sun around here. As you can see, the sky is just blue and pretty. Also, it's very sheltered. That's because of the mountain ranges over there and over there. So it's just pretty beautiful. Pretty sunny, nice and warm. With lots of animals. Like those gulls aren't there. Also records and lots of plants. Similar to the west coast, but also a little bit different because it's not as wet and windy and nasty. Finally, we have the central mountain areas of New Zealand. This is where the Australian and the Pacific plate push into each other, forming mountains, a bit like this. Mountains in New Zealand are pretty extreme. The difference between summer and winter is a whole 15 degrees. That's a lot for New Zealand. Although, it's still pretty coastal. Well, it does make winters cold like a freezer. With snow and ice on higher elevations. Almost enough to go skiing. Winters are pretty rough. Summers, however, are nice and warm. Perfect for ice cream. Now, these conditions mean that everything that's trying to live here needs to gear up. So plants are usually just very small ground-covering shrubs. Have very small leaves or have them coated in wax to avoid losing much water and to help against the frost. You find a lot of tussocks very up Iron Mountain where trees cannot survive anymore. And any trees that do cling to the mountainside are reduced to tiny wind-blown shrubs. Now, animals as well need to do something to survive out here. Wetters, for example, can survive being frozen solid, and Kia's involved up here to be smart enough to reverse these difficult mountain situations. So, in summary, the East Coast is wet. The East Coast is warm and sunny. The mountains are extreme. And the top of the South is just a good place to be. So, next time you're traveling around, just go and have a look. See if you can notice these weather patterns. Or maybe you can see some differences too. Some exceptions or some other fun things. Like the Weymouth Harbour maybe. Yeah, go have a look, because it is actually really fun. The weather is cool. Over and out.